Strictly follow policy. Does that sound familiar? Have you ever felt that your workplace prioritizes what's known as a corporate checklist over what is really just common sense? If so, then you're not alone. Welcome again to Peace Unplugged. In this episode, I'm going to be looking at what are known as workplace policies and procedures. And I'll be asking some critical questions. Are policies and procedures truly protecting us? Are they really creating a safe place to work from a psychological point of view? Or are they actually missing the point of a human ethical business? In this podcast, we'll discover the rigidity of the rule book might be the very thing holding back the organisation and perhaps your career. Through some research, I'll be delving into some intellectual and academic evidence to discover whether this is all genuine and asking the crucial question, is it aligned with everybody's overall well-being? A little bit of background for you. I recently took early retirement, end of 2024. That was a decision that gave me the chance to evaluate my workplace, my time at work over the decades of employment. And like many people, my work was dictated by getting the paycheck at the end of the month. And work often felt like just an existence, just waiting for the weekend, than to have a life well lived. A persistent frustration for me was the endless, often soulless cycle of having to abide by, or in some cases actually writing policies and procedures, as that was one of the jobs that I did many years ago. The reality was the exhaustive documentation wasn't always about fostering a great, safe place to work. In my evaluation, it was quite often more about achieving a compliance for the purposes of maintaining a contract or just to simply project an image of, shall we say, professionalism. This, as I've researched, aligns with scholarly work on organised hypocrisy, where formal policies are created primarily for external legitimization, shall we say. In other words, to look good to regulators, to satisfy investors, even to satisfy the public perhaps, rather than for the internal guidance or for cultural change. Some of this comes from Niels Brunson, the organisation of hypocrisy. My experience over the various workplaces through my working life, in countless workplaces, I saw many employers pay lip service to written policies and procedures, and in some cases weaponizing them only when it served their bottom line or their legal advantage. In many cases, it was using policies and procedures simply as a risk management tool rather than an ethical framework. They can get used as the employer's shield. That means they're sometimes disposable or rigid, and that's based solely on their self-interest. I often wonder, where was the humanity in all of this? To bring this into context from a personal testimony, I witnessed the cold clash of policy and human need. And this happened during the time of COVID-19. This was when I was seriously ill in hospital with that infection, and it nearly took my life. On the first day of my initial recovery, some physiotherapists arrived. I was so pleased to see them. It felt like a bit of a beacon of hope, simply because they said they were going to help me to walk again, although I didn't realise at the time that I wasn't able to walk. The plan was to sit me up and get me to stand on my own 2 feet whilst being held so I could do some side steps. When it came to day 2 of that physiotherapy, apparently my heart monitor was flashing major warnings, and the decision was made that standing up for me was too risky. So that planned progress activity was halted, and it was devastating. It crushed me at the time. My mental health was already quite low at that point, and having that bit of information caused their mental health to completely plummet. And I can also remember a nurse warning me not to get too upset because it would simply make the condition of my heart worse. So I was kind of caught in a catch-22 position. This example of where adherence to, frankly, a single issue of physical safety was actively causing a broader, more dangerous health crisis. Fortunately, the breakthrough came on the following day. A senior nurse made the courageous decision, and I have to say a human-centered decision. She overrode what was decided the previous day. She effectively recognised that the mental distress posed a greater risk than the physical. Now, I'd say this with, of course, its risks. It's a powerful example of what I call ethical leadership because it used the importance of discretion, capacity for that nurse to make situation-specific and context-aware judgments. We might argue but that is essential for professional practice, especially so in care environments. Or research. Michael Lipsky's work on street-level bureaucracy is highly relevant here. I later heard that nurse refer to their decision, and she said that policies are for guidance. Humanity must prevail. Now, that hospital incident was in stark counterpoint to a later experience I had when I returned to work. Essentially, I got issued a disciplinary for breaching a procedure related to COVID-19. That procedure had only really been written about 2 or 3 weeks earlier, and the decision to discipline me was based on 2 or 3 lines from that procedure. I decided to appeal, and I decided that might be useful to actually cite the policies and procedures of the organisation to demonstrate that they had also failed to follow procedure in the way that they disciplined. What happened was that appeal was rejected. So on the one side, the procedures were strictly adhered to for the purposes of disciplining me. When I appealed, I was told that policies and procedures were there for guidance. That made it crystal clear to me. Workplace procedures were simply tools, disposable or rigid, based solely on an employer's self-interest. The pain of constantly navigating a system where corporate consistently trumped genuine human care finally taught me the most crucial career lesson. The ultimate goal of any working life should be one that aligns with our personal values in very much an ecological way. This ecological concept moves beyond the idea of work-life balance, and it insists on a holistic compatibility between a person, their role, and the organisational impact. So you might be asking, what does ecological mean in this context? I'll explain it. It means asking 3 questions about employment and the organisation that we work for. The first of these is it good for me? That means my mental health, my physical health, and my financial security. Point 2, is it good for others? So in that case, for me, that means, is it good for my colleagues? Is it good for my customers or clients? Is it good for my community? Is it a good measure of social impact? And thirdly, is it good for the environment? That means the broader world, meaning a measure of environmental responsibility. This tripartite framework ensures that our work contributes to a genuine value contribution and creation. It relates to modern business ethics and argues that sustainability and social good are inseparable from long-term financial success. So I'm wondering whether we should stop sacrificing our well-being for what is essentially a compliance checklist. Seek out employers who treat policies and procedures as guides and not gospel. Ensure they prioritize integrity, humanity, and genuine value creation. We all know the way that work is structured, the systems we use, the workflows, the boundaries. All this has a huge impact on employee well-being. When workplace systems are designed intentionally, we set a great foundation for mental health, not just efficiency. However, many organisations still operate with legacy work systems, very much built for the office-only era. That means rigid schedules, unclear boundaries between work and home life, siloed communication. These systems create high job demands and blurred boundaries, and resources that are mismatched to needs. Again, some background. According to the Job Demands Resource Model, JD-R framework, when job demands are high and job resources are low, strain and poor well-being result. But if we redesign by defining clearer work boundaries, giving autonomy to resources, aligning demands and supports, well, I wonder whether it's possible that organisations can reduce strain and improve. That means improving for motivation and mental health. There's some research into hybrid and virtual teams shows that when job demands and resources are managed, well-being improves. As happened more so during the COVID-19 period. Systems where employees alternate homework and the office, where the core hours are defined, tasks are scheduled for collaboration days, and heads up for deep focus days. The purpose is balance and flexibility with structure. A 2024 study found that hybrid work models enhance productivity while maintaining well-being. Leadership behaviour is a critical lever. You see, leaders shape culture. They set the norms, They model the responses and effectively enable or disable psychological safety. The key word here is psychological safety at work. In many hybrid or remote settings, leadership has lagged behind. Many leaders struggle with trust. They in fact struggle with communication or adapting to new ways of working, effectively new dynamics. Without a bit of proactive leadership, employees may feel isolated. Crucially, unable to speak, fearful of mistakes, and that simply increases mental health risk. For example, concept of a strong psychological safety climate links to organizational environment, leadership, and well-being outcomes. Information comes from Wikipedia. When leaders adopt behaviors that promote psychological safety with open communications, effectively having an error-tolerant culture, regular check-ins, visible empathy, it creates a safer worker environment and reduces mental health risk. It boosts engagement. It lands for a much happier workplace. And I'd argue also will enable a much bigger employee retention. A leader who holds a weekly "What's Not Working for You" session will be visibly acknowledging those stress points, following up with resources and support. It encourages peer sharing, making the most out of individuals' particular talents, and again helps build that safer climate and environment. The outcome will people more willing to raise issues early rather than waiting for a crisis to come along. This concept of hybrid work, a mixture of working from home and working in the office, is, as we now know, mainstream. But that in itself brings its own set of mental health implications, and those need leadership attention. So despite its benefits, hybrid work can cause some blurred boundaries, some isolation, and some unclear sense of identity, and that demands on systems and leadership. A 2025 review noted that hybrid work designs profiles impact worker well-being, flourishing, and mental health. Also, a literature review highlighted that while flexibility is good, includes risk includes social isolation and blurred work-life lines. If we proactively design hybrid work with clear expectations, regular in-office collaboration days, and defined home office norms, boundary management, we can harness the benefits. Flexibility for better work-life balance while limiting the costs. For example, the UK survey found that hybrid workers reported less burnout, better health, and greater job satisfaction. Designing a hybrid schedule where 3 days are collaborative in-office and 2 days are quiet home-focused days, providing training for remote collaboration, setting no meeting blocks, clarifying where workers are expected to be online versus offline. This system, leadership and policy design, addresses the hybrid challenge proactively. Reactive approaches mean we intervene after harm happens, but research, for example, a recent 2024 study, shows early detection and proactive support can reduce risk and improve outcomes. When mental health issues advance to crisis, cost, disruption, and suffering are much higher. By embedding preventative elements, regular well-being, check-ins, data-driven sensing where ethical, peer support, mental health literacy training, leadership modelling, we can shift the culture to one where mental health is maintained, not just treated. Now, we've covered these individual pieces: work designs, leadership, hybrid challenges, proactive support. The power lies in integrating them, making them work together. Too often, workplaces work in silos. System folks think about process, HR allegedly thinks about mental health, leadership, and training, and the hybrid policy is somewhat ad hoc. This means that there's some gaps that remain. Mental health risks will persist. Hybrid promise is not fully realized. When we integrate design work systems that align with these hybrid models, it trains leadership behaviors that focus on psychological safety. That results in less staff turnover. We've walked through now how to work through design systems in the workplace that support mental health, how leadership behaviors will shape psychological safety. We've looked at how hybrid work can bring new challenges, but also opportunities, essentially how proactive mental health support prevents future crisis. So here's the key message. Mental health in the workplace is not just one of those wellness perks. It's an integral part of work design and of leadership and culture. So here are some key solutions. Align job demands and job resources. Apply the JDR model when designing tasks, workflows and flexibility. Train and empower leaders in psychological safety, in open communication. Model vulnerability. Design hybrid work deliberately. Set norms and schedules, roles for remote versus office days, and manage those boundaries. Embed proactive mental health support, particularly early interventions, well-being check-ins, micro break, and essentially mental health literacy within the leadership team. Integrate those into systems and policies that include leadership and support. Your well-being as an employee is worth more than a corporate badge. How do you navigate the tension between rigid policy and human judgment in your own workplace? Share your thoughts on whether discretion or strict compliance creates a better working environment. Thank you for joining me today on Peace Unplugged. Please share this content where you found it useful and subscribe to my podcast.